Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the micrography practice. And essentially this worksheet is just for you to practice creating values using multiple different tools, or just two different tools in particular. And since you guys are going to be finishing your project in pen, it's important that when you create your value, you're using pen. I would definitely not recommend you going in with pencil as far as like drawing out your words and trying to go over in pen, because that's just going to create double the amount of work for you. However, you can create your sketch and then start working in pen. So I guess I can go ahead and show you some examples here. Now my first example is Reagan's here, and she used two tools, and I'm about to show you those tools, and those are just very typical standard drawing pens. The first one is a fine tip Sharpie. You want to make sure you're grabbing a fine tip one that looks like this and not one of those thick ones, just because I know what you're thinking. Yes, it will get the job done faster, but it's not going to have that pretty payoff at the end. Okay, so that's the first one, fine tip Sharpie. And then the second one is just a typical ballpoint pen. Now these are very cheap and inexpensive, however they work really well, especially for getting those lighter values. So for instance with Reagan's here, we can tell that she went in with a Sharpie where her darkest values are, so her cast shadow here, her windows, and then some areas in the bumper. And then other areas, such as the parking lot here, the Bronco itself, and then I want to say Sharpie's the background. But anyway, these two areas, she definitely used the ballpoint pen just because they're very light, or much lighter than the Sharpie. However, you could continue to use one tool the entire time, and that's what Bailey did here, where she just used the ballpoint pen the entire time with drawing her Dr. Pepper, and she's still able to get really good dark values. Now, of course, whenever you're creating dark values, you want to overlap your words as much as possible. So, with that being said, here in the dark values, you really shouldn't be able to tell what your words are saying. However, let's see if I can zoom in here. When we get to the lighter values, we should be able to read them. So again, darker values, neat scribbles, I say. Don't like go crazy with your scribbling. Make it look neat as if you're still writing words. And then as you work lighter, you should be able to read what you're trying to write. Okay, so let's go back to this worksheet. And you can see that I have three different values here. Now, the first one is the lightest, and I'm just going to choose something that I know I can write pretty quickly, and that is my name. I'm just going to go with my first name. And whenever you are creating a lighter value, one, we're going to use a lighter tool, but also I want to space my words out apart more. That way there's more of the paper showing through, which will make my value appear lighter. So my first name is Corey. So I'm just going to keep writing my name over and over. And again, I'm not overlapping anything. I'm kind of still keeping them spaced apart. And for this example, I'm not going to be super neat about it. But when you get to your final, definitely take your time on it. Now, most of my students, when they start to do this, they're like, Miss Vince, am I doing this right? Yes, you are. Just remember, you are creating value using words. So it's not going to be as, I guess I should say, clear as if you were shading with pencil. So yes, I would consider this a light value for this one. Let's go ahead and move on to this dark value. I guess I'm going to show you both with the ballpoint and the Sharpie. And again, I'm just going to use my name, but since I want to go darker, I'm going to start overlapping my words. And again, I really shouldn't be able to read it, or the viewer really shouldn't be able to read what you're saying here. Now, I've had students go crazy and just keep writing their names over and over. And then at the end, you can't really read it anyway, or their words over and over. But I'm going to be honest, I kind of cheat a little bit, and I just do little rows of little scribbles. And again, when I say scribbles, I don't mean like this, trying to cover it. I still want you to go in those rows to make it look as if you were writing. So with this ballpoint pen, I really want to overlap it as much as possible, just to make sure that I'm getting those dark values. Okay, and I guess I'll go ahead and show you how different the Sharpie looks compared. And again, I'm just going to do the same thing. However, I think the Sharpie is a much more darker value. Yeah, you can even see that on camera, how much of a difference it is. I guess just depending how dark you want to go with your values is what tools you decide to use. Both together are great, or if you just want to use one over the other. I would definitely recommend, if you chose one, to choose the ballpoint, just because I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to go lighter with the Sharpie. And now this isn't a completely black square. It kind of does look like it on camera, but if it was completely black, I guess I would color or scribble this entirely. But since it's not, I'm still leaving some white spaces. Okay, I'm going to say that's pretty good as far as an example. I want you to finish your squares, of course, but for the sake of this video not being 20 minutes long, let's go ahead and move on to this last square. And what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to go back to my ballpoint just because I'm more comfortable with using this one, and it's so much easier to build up your values versus going dark right away. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the first, but again, I am going to start overlapping my words, or in this case, my name. Now, in this medium value, or mid-tone, I should say, I should be able to read your words. Now, or the viewer should be able to read your words. The only time you shouldn't be able to read your words is when you get to this dark value. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that one. So, on this one, still writing my name. But when I get to that next row, I'm going to overlap them just a little bit. The best thing to do if you're unsure if you're doing it right is to take your paper and like kind of, I guess you could step back or you could pull your paper away from you. And if you see 3 different value changes, then you're good. So I can already tell a difference between this and this, which means I'm pretty much off to a great start. I'm gonna do 2 more rows here, and then you guys can go ahead and start as well. All right, when you do this worksheet, again, make sure you finish your squares, but that is it. That is the Micrography value practice. This should help you as far as practicing your values as well as practicing within your sketch. All right, I hope this was helpful.